looking at that situation, when you acquire a guy that's been a multiple-time All-Star, and you don't give away, I mean, depending on what you think of Wendell Carter, you didn't give away a massive amount of two first rounders, depending on how.
And that might hurt, right?
It might, depending on how they do, but he's giving them a chance to compete. I think they were probably the ones that got the best situation. I think actually, and I also will say that Miami got Oladipo for a song. So you add Oladipo to that lineup where it's a little bit interesting because now I guess you don't play Nunn or Dragic depending on how the injury is. Because Oladipo would probably start, I would assume.
I think you start him at the 2.
Start at the 2, and maybe Dragic at the point.
Yeah,
interesting. And then I guess you have Jimmy at the shooting.
Jimmy at the 3, Bam. I don't know if they're starting at the 5 because Myers Leonard's obviously got waived today. Which so here's another question: is Myers Leonard ever going to play an NBA game again?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think he was a guy that was going to be like highly sought in the first place.
But he would have been in the league another 5 years.
And yes,
just as a 3-point shooter.
The slur thing was, again, I didn't see the actual clip of the gaming situation that would happen, but I've heard of it. And at the end of the day, when you're a guy that's like, truthfully probably like barely hanging on in the league as
you're starting from Miami, you played 10, 15 minutes a game, but
at the end of the day, when you do stuff like that, and and you try to apologize and so on, but like they didn't even waste time and they didn't get rid. But again, he's starting from Miami, but it's mostly because Miami doesn't really have anybody. How many teams would Myers Leonard really start for that maybe the Raptors, I guess, but because they stink. Well, I would not start him over Boucher. And Baines this year's been terrible, but he's a better player than Leonard is. I don't. Potentially, probably down the line, somebody will sign him to a 10-day or something that might just use him.
10-day, wow.
A 10-day. Well, again, like I said, some guys that's what ends up being the situation, right? I mean, I remember during Miami's run last year, he was a spot guy that would be a DNP sometimes.
They just extended him at the beginning of the year. I believe they gave him an extra year on his contract.
But again, like I said, to me he's on one of those guys like JaVale McGee, who also got traded today. Those guys seem to be very.
But he's still in the league, right?
They're in the league, but they're very like disposable assets. Where you might not even remember that they're out of the league if you're not really paying attention for the most.
Well, like Dwight was for a bit too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think Myers Leonard plays another NBA game?
I'm gonna say it's a tough one.
I'm leaning towards no.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say that at the end of the day,
which is wild.
Which is because at the end of the day, I don't think he's worth the headache that you have to deal with from the communities based off the type of level of player that he is. If he was a much skilled player, like again, it isn't the Kareem Hunt situation or anything like that.
Terrence Davis made it in the league, and I think that beating a woman, which is what he's accused of, is worse, isn't it?
It is, but in the sense of the fact that you also have to put it into a situation where. Again, at that point, it's an accusation. Like it's.
I thought you said that you saw even pictures online of the person's face.
No,
I thought there was pictures released.
They were supposedly there were some messages or something like that. I don't think I saw any pictures. At least I'm not aware of that. It was
but either way, point is Terrence Davis is still in the league.
Which at the end of the day, I don't know what happened. The charges were dropped. You can make. I'm not condoning.
Ray Rice's wife dropped charges too, right?
Yeah, but there was video evidence of that, and he never played in the league either.
Exactly.
That one was a completely different story. Yeah. And again, remember the NFL suspended him for a couple of games. He was back, and only after that Mike Tyson cold cocking in the elevator that we saw, where he dragged your body out of there. Mike Tyson there.
That was a bad video.
That was absolutely
disturbing.
That was massively disturbing. And the disturbing part is that she still ended up with him at the end of the day. And then
she dropped the charges.
Well, there you go. And that's what I'm talking about. Like. It's toxic stuff, and I'm not condoning that whatsoever. But I'm also not condoning if a guy's gonna Mike Tyson you like that you end up staying with him, that he's sorry. Remember, when someone does something like that to you, where he clocks you the next week,
you want to talk about toxic on both sides,
you got
right?
Problems. So again, Terrence Davis Terrence Davis is absolutely ruined. Again, he was a guy that was on the rookie
second team.
Yeah, rookie second team. He was on that. I believe he was on that young Rising Stars game. So to give that guy away for two second rounders is a song, but he had absolutely fallen out of
Nick's rotation.
And actually, we're getting to that.
We need to talk about. Okay, go ahead.
We get to that. Like, out of all the people on the Raptors situation, I never would have thought that Pascal Siakam would be the one that tries to clock Nick Nurse. It gave me Vince Carter, Sam Mitchell vibes when he threw him over the table. And I'm like, you know what? As a point to it. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. And the reason that I don't hate it because
Passion?
The passion and the competitiveness that I think Pascal comes off as a guy that's
Passive.
very lackluster and bad. The fact that he wanted to
throw hands
with Nick Nurse, it kind of makes it seem that like he's getting to a point where he's again, and he's had some problems.
He's been hearing some cheap chirping too, right? He's been benched. He had to play off last year, which was sad.
Suspended him for the.
They suspended him. He's been fined.
And maybe again, that could be one of those situations where a guy finally got paid and it maybe got to his head a little bit. It's happened again. I remember I told you when I first met Blake. Blake seemed like a kid. That you told me that Blake did the stuff that he would do later on in his career. I would have said you were absolutely crazy. He was the most humble kid. And again, and I don't know what happened and what was said. The fact that Pascal wanted to smoke Nurse and made it a public thing, right?
Nick Nurse acknowledged it.
Yeah, that he wanted to smoke Nick Nurse, and I don't know what the situation was. But again, maybe that's a little kick in the ass that they needed. I don't know.
It's like when the coach gets ejected.
I remember like
you
could tell that like, and the funny thing is like. Nick doesn't come off that way that much. Sam Mitchell came off that way. Sam Mitchell's a guy that you could tell
very confrontational.
He was very confrontational. I remember that one time with our I think it was Rob. Rob, our fellow former sports in that situation. Rob was at a game. He asked Sam some weird question about Andrea Bargnani. And Rob ended up being in one of those TSN top 10 clips because he got hit with a crazy. He got hit with a response. I think he said something about Bargnani, and Sam got so mad at him for asking the question that he got out the stats and he gave him some kind of really bad response. I have to go back and look at exactly what he said, but I was pretty sure it was about Bargnani. And he absolutely cooked Rob, and I think Rob was a junior guy at the time. He had barely been in there. Just got in, and Sam actually absolutely roasted him because he asked some kind of question about. I think it was because of the stats, and then Sam went through the stats and it just went crazy on him. And it happened.
It would have been nice if it was like a Dennis Green kind of thing.
It happened with me with Terry Francona one time. I asked a dumb question, and Terry Francona like absolutely laid into me during the conference. It happens. Sometimes you think it's the way it comes off in your head. Sometimes you're thinking it's a good way to answer.
Well, that was like yesterday when Kyle got they were saying, "Oh, tomorrow's trade deadline." And one of the reporters said, "Good luck," and Kyle's like, "Good luck." So what do you mean good luck? He's like, "Oh, sorry."
But here's the thing. It's funny, and I've seen a lot of it lately. I don't know like what it is these days, but it's becoming very testy between guys and reporters, more so than I've ever seen it before. I've seen reporters like literally tell guys like, "Are you like the Buffalo?" I don't know if you've been seeing that. The Sabres have been so bad this year. Yeah. The reporters are literally like, "Aren't you guys embarrassed the way you guys?"
Yeah, I saw that one with the coach. Yeah,
the coach and like
Sam and a few of the players. Yes,
like they're not pulling any punches. And then who was it earlier this year that asked? Well, Steve Simmons had all those issues with Austin, but there was another situation where it was Voracek on the Flyers where a guy literally was like
they lost 9-0. That one?
No, it was literally like he was doing some like he had read an article about that was just trashing Voracek, and then the guy came on the mic and then Voracek's like, "Well, I don't really give a crap what you say. You're a piece of crap anyways," and like I don't even want to answer your question because you're just such a piece of crap. And it was. And again, to me, again, he was bad mouthing Voracek for something that he did, and you think that players don't read that? They read that. They'll never admit it, but they know which guys are bad mouthing him and which guys are not. And then the things come up, but it makes things much more interesting. But the media has been a lot more forthcoming. I don't know if people are just irritated with
something. Well, social media, everybody's sensitive these days and everything. Well, you just say you don't want to answer
it provides some good content.
But it's some good quotes, yeah.
It's some good
quotes. Those long mistake, coach. I'm a man, I'm 40. Come on, dude. That was
from a while ago. But yeah, something like it's definitely getting into situations where guys are definitely crossing more lines these days, which makes it interesting for sure.
So the Heat also got Bjelica from the Kings for Harkless and Silva. Not a bad pickup. They did a little bit of shuffling. The Heat got better today.
I think they did, yeah.
And I think the Nuggets also got pretty good too, just from the Aaron Gordon signing. Even though he's not, I know that he's probably going to average, or at least he was averaging around 20. He's there for defense too.
To me, Miami took a big step in their situation where they will be a bit. They were going to be a problem. I think now they're if anyone's going to stay healthy, they're going to be a bigger problem. They just, to me, they've ascended a little bit higher than Boston. I will probably rank them 3.
They have a lot more depth than Boston.
Yeah, I would probably rank them 3 with Jimmy, and if everyone stays healthy.
Jimmy, Bam, Tyler Hero's still there.
Yeah, and like I said, and again, I think if Oladipo ends up being healthy and like producing what he can do, they're going to be a problem.
Dragic was really good before he got hurt last year.
Remember, depending on what you think of it, they maybe. I don't know. Milwaukee, would I take them over Milwaukee? I think I probably would. With
this year, I don't think I would.
With the Oladipo situation, I just might if Oladipo meshes well, but we'll see how that pans out. But I think with Jimmy, and if they do what they did last year, they could be a significant problem.
And then Celtics playoff legend from last year, Brad Wanamaker, who the Raptors fans know, he was pretty good in the playoffs last year. Went to the Golden State, didn't do much for them really all year. He went to the Hornets for cash, just because they needed another guard because LaMelo went down. I think that the Celtics would probably take him back if they could. They just didn't sign him because they didn't have the money to. But that's a guy that got away. JJ Redick and Nicolo Melli, two shooters from Pelicans, went to the Mavs.
Redick just trying to keep that playoff streak alive.
Well, last year they didn't make it, but that's not a good pickup for the Mavs, right? They sent James Johnson, another Raptors legend, Wes Iwundu, the second round pick.
Jiu-jitsu legend as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Redick at the end of the day was,
they weren't giving him minutes.
He basically takes up the spot of what Seth Curry did for the Mavericks last year. Was a spot up shooter and something that Luka needs and gives them a better opportunity there. Again, they've been another team that hasn't been great. They've underperformed.
So few teams have though, right?
Yeah, they've underperformed.
How many...
Like again, there's teams that I think the Knicks have surprised a lot of people that they're still significant.
But even the Knicks, just above 500, I
want to say. But in the playoffs, probably not a lot of.
They're gonna make it. Julius Randle's been playing out of his mind.
Spike Lee's back. James Dolan is still kicking guys out of the crowd.
Patrick Ewing Jr. got ID'd.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and again, I still think he's the worst owner in sports.
For sure.
But, to me, if a guy wears a Van Dolan t-shirt and you kick him out of the arena, that's a problem. That happened. There was literally a fan. He had a Van Dolan t-shirt. And at the end of the day, I guess the security guys are like, hey, take off that shirt or we're kicking you out of here.
They've done that to a few people.
And to me, because at the end of the day,
there was the Oakley thing.
It's a situation where the guy can't take any criticism for doing a crap job. Let's be honest. He's like a petulant bully, like a child. And to me, it should be illegal to do that. Like if you're, I don't care if you're the owner of the team. Like the fans have a right.
Free speech, right? In America.
Speech. Yeah, as long as it's not something that's
offensive,
swearing or offensive or like someone around, you should have absolutely the right to do that. The fact that you get kicked out for a t-shirt like that is absolutely
just a passionate fan, right?
It's a passionate fan that's basically saying that Dolan's been garbage for years,
which is a fact.
Which is a fact, and Dolan doesn't want to agree with it. It's the fact that Spike Lee's now finally back. I think he was there 3 days ago. Again, he was treated so badly that one incident last year, he was almost gone for an entire year.
Spike,
yeah. They gave him some problems where you try to get into an elevator, and he had taken that elevator for years, and then they told him all of a sudden that's only for employees or something. Then he lost his mind because again he was just because I guess Dolan told him, hey, you can't do that anymore. And again, Spike Lee.
That's the one guy that you don't like. He's their super fan.
But it's Dolan at the end of the day, right? So yeah. But either way, like I said, some interesting moves all in all, and. Like I said, I still think the buyout market's gonna be a big indicator of how some of these teams do. But right now, man, it's to me it's still a crapshoot. I don't know with the injuries and stuff. I have no idea who's gonna come off out west, and the East is I think gotten a little bit more interesting with some of the moves. But maybe Brooklyn, maybe Philly, maybe they're still again once the playoffs. And again, are you concerned about the Durant injury?
It's getting a little bit suspicious now, right? And the thing is, they're called it a hamstring injury. So he tore his Achilles, then he had a calf problem. Now it's his hamstring, so he's going all up the back part of his leg now.
Okay.
And I don't it's really weird because every game he's played, it's not like he hasn't looked good. Every game he comes in, he scores 25. I haven't seen him.
So is this load management?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe, but even so, it's been too long to be load management. At least with load management, you play a few games, you sit out. If he hasn't played, it seems like it's been at least a month.
I think it's been at least a month. They can call me the All-Star break. It probably has been at least a month.
James is playing every game, and I want to talk about that because James Harden, big fan used to be as a basketball player. What he's done off the court and sometimes on the court has made me kind of question that, a lot of people. But looking at the MVP race right now, which we can kind of talk about too. So LeBron goes down.
Embiid went down.
Those were probably Embiid was probably his to go, right? And then Jokic as well. Mm-hmm. So Jokic right now, just because he's the last man standing, which I was talking about, probably the guy to win MVP. But people just forgot about James Harden. James Harden once, so 2 games ago, yesterday they lost to Utah. 2 days ago he was by himself because Kyrie had a child.
I don't
remember who they played. They smashed them. It looks like he's back to running the whole Houston offense where it's 40-point triple doubles. How is he not mentioned in just due to the fact that he did the Rockets fiasco?
Exactly.
But numbers wise and the way he's playing, he's MVP this year.
He's been very good. I mean, again, like I said,
he's been incredible.
That whole fiasco probably puts him again. I don't think the league would want to reward a guy like with bad behavior of what he did. It sends the wrong message. I will agree with you that as we say, so far the Brooklyn Nets have been, again, even without KD and Kyrie going on and off, James has pretty much solidified a good place there. And again, if they all remain healthy, and so forth, they will obviously be tough to beat in a 7-game series. They have enough talent. Defensively, we can still to me, it's still a bit of a problem. But I mean, then it tightens up in the playoffs. But tough to again guard 3 guys that are at that kind of level. So again, I'm still a little bit skeptical because again, regular season.
You'll be skeptical until they raise the banner.
I won't be skeptical to raise the banner. I'll be skeptical until I see them play some playoff games on teams that are legitimately high end and they're playing tighter defense.
So they're going to win their first round matchup because they'll finish first or second, right? So in the second round they'll end up playing someone legitimate, probably like
and that'll
Philly, Miami.
Yeah,
so then that matchup is when you'll kind of
that'll be my thing. And depending on how the first round, like if they put the Knicks and they absolutely romp over the Knicks or whoever ends up being that 8th spot, or
could be
the Raptors. Heck knows. Then I'll again, and then we'll see the situations. Until they haven't really played a ton together. There's only been a few games. So the one guy's injured, the other guy's injured. And again, Harden can do that now. We'll do the same thing when KD's there, when they have to share the ball. It'll be a different little situation. I still think that, again, like most first-year teams, just like LeBron in Miami, usually on the first year, it always ends up kind of rough. Kawhi, and they always ends up kind of rough. Just throwing guys together and then hoping that they have the chemistry to get things done.
Well, Kawhi in Toronto was the total opposite, right?
It was, but he also was in a situation where he joined a team that had been together for ages. And in the Clipper situation, a lot of them were there, but he was also another significant player. And the whole mentality of the team changed. When Kawhi got there, I don't think the Raptors' mentality changed. I think Kawhi added to the mentality, while the Clippers were a hard-working bunch of scruffs per se.
Prima donnas that came
in,
and
then they had to completely changed it. So to me, that's the whole chemistry switch off on that. So again, in this situation so far, it's been good. I still need to see how it's done in the playoffs because again, a lot of teams are great in the regular season, but when it comes to crunch time, and heck, we've seen it. We've seen it literally in the city, where a lot of teams are great in the regular season and then come to the playoffs, they fumble it all over the place. And again, reputations. All those guys, minus I guess KD, have reputations that when it comes to the playoffs and when they were the lone show or trying to be that they've had issues. And again, they injury prone guys at times. KD again. So are you still giving them the favorites if KD's legitimately, let's say, out for the season?
I don't think he's going to be out for the season. But if they have 2 guys, no matter what the combination is, I still think that they're favorites in the East.
Right, so
betting favorites, and I think they're betting favorites to win the title right now.
So even if it's no KD and you're good with Harden and Kyrie as getting out of the East with no KD whatsoever.
If I had to place a bet, I would say yes.
Interesting. I don't know.
And the only other team that I would put money on that I would actually feel good about would be Philly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now Milwaukee has a shot and Miami has a shot. Other than that, I don't see Boston is lurking. I guess in that 5th spot. I don't think the Knicks have enough firepower to do much.
Miami's going to be a problem. I think if Oladipo gets healthy, I think Miami's going to be a problem.
Well, Oladipo is what he is now, right? He's not going to his squad's always going to be.
Right now, he's legitimately a 3 option. 3, maybe even a 4 option. That makes him a dangerous situation. Remember, you got Jimmy and Bam, and then again you can legitimately say that at the end of the day, Tyler Hero I guess hasn't been great this season.
But so we'll talk about Tyler Hero quick.
Dragic is usually a 3rd option.
Dragic as well. The thing with Dragic was he last year got hurt obviously with the playoffs, and that's, to be honest, if he was healthy they could have. Because every game, except the finals where they got killed, which was well documented, they were in every game and won a bunch of the games. We went back and forth with that. That halftime score, I'll never forget it. I don't know what it was, but I know that it was a 30 point.
It was a 30 point.
It was stupid.
The Lakers just beat the brakes out of them.
So Tyler Hero was pretty much untouchable in all of the James Harden sweepstakes and everything that had happened. So if they would have threw him in this Kyle Lowry deal, it would have been really bad in hindsight because they were so reluctant to trade him.
It would have been a prisoner of the moment move that he's having a bad year and you get rid of a guy off of one bad year.
But he's in his 2nd year and there is still potential. his rookie season started off decent. It was above average for sure. He elevated in the playoffs because guys went down, and he had Jimmy Butler and Bam, who are Jimmy Butler's like a perennial all-star, and Bam was great.
Bam was great.
Now this year, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, like the same thing as I feel like what happened with Duncan Robinson this year. Tyler Hero's a little bit more skilled, but they're like, okay, we know you're going to shoot threes. We're just going to get in your face. You're not going to do much.
He's had a sophomore slump, no doubt.
Right? And now what I'm seeing is now they're going to get all these guys, and I feel like now it's going to create some space, because the same thing we talked about Pascal time and time again. It's like, Pascal's good, but if he's your number one guy and the team has a game plan to stop him, which happened in the playoffs last year, what's happening this year, we're seeing struggles. Sure. We're seeing $50,000 fines. And we're seeing talking garbage to Coach Nick Nurse, right? So, like, this is, and I talked about this. I like it too. I like it because he's showing some resiliency and he's showing that he actually cares. But will the skill overcome the mouth?
Well, and that's the thing. And it's getting to a point where, and I never thought I'd be saying this, that it might be like in a year or two, it might have to be a decision between who gets, either you fire Nurse or do you trade Pascal, because it's starting to get a little. I would have never, in my wildest dreams, thought that this would be even a feasible scenario where one guy, where Siakam's become such a quote unquote malcontent out of nowhere, where now he's getting suspended and he's almost punching her. It goes to show you that at the end of the day, that might prove to be a situation where he either has to be moved, or like the Raptors got to do a situation where they got to can Nick Nurse. Like, who would have thought, eh?
Okay, so I was talking with a friend. I was talking with a friend about Nick Nurse, and there was word that Nick Nurse has lost the locker room. Now, I think that is crazy. I still think that he's I don't even think it's cool. I think he's a top 10 coach in the league. I was arguing with a buddy about who's ahead of him. Who's really ahead of Nick Nurse? Like,
so again, like Kyle, I was never a huge Nick Nurse guy, and the fact of the matter is he almost cost them the championship in a couple of scenarios. The timeout, yeah. The timeout, yeah. And I was there for the timeout. That was one of the dumbest coaching decisions I've ever seen in my life. They had all the momentum. You never do that. Even an amateurish coach I've criticized him over he had rotations where he keeps guys out there way too long. And then the game gets out of hand.
Doghouse stuff. Terrence Davis.
The issue is, and I'll still tell to this day, I think given the same sort of set of players, and just trade out DeMar for Kawhi Leonard. You saw what Dwayne Casey did to LeBron when he was the Mavs coach. He's a very good defensive coach. You give him a guy like Kawhi, I think their results would have been very similar.
You think they would have won a title?
And I'm a big fan. And again, all in all, I always loved Dwayne Casey.
I like Dwayne Casey.
Dwayne Casey was a class act. I talked to the man a few times when I was still working at Sportsnet. A class act. Loved the man. He's a very nice guy. I think that at the end of the day, given the same set of players, and you trade out DeMar for Kawhi, the results would have been similar. And in fact, I think the Raptors would probably want to have been an even better defensive team because that was Casey's forte, while Nurse was more on the offensive end of things. I think Casey was limited. Remember, Casey was coach of the year, and then they fired him. Like he was no scrub.
It seems like that's a theme in the NBA,
He was no scrub.
Sam Mitchell was the same.
He got again. Let's call a spade a spade. He got fired because that guy and DeMar cost him his job. Let's be real. They stunk in the playoffs against Kawhi.
The Cavs swept them, right?
The Cavs swept them. Yeah, those memes with Kawhi with Kyle and DeMar on the show.
LeBron, you mean?
LeBron, sorry.
LeBronto.
LeBronto. And again, that's what ended up costing him his job. So at the end of the day, I think Nick Nurse is a good coach. I don't think he's. I think he did a solid job last year. Are we seeing some warts this year with what they're going through? Absolutely. Again, top 10 we can argue and so forth. To me,
he's an upper echelon coach. If he got fired, he'd get a job next season, right?
Based off him winning a championship, sure. At the end of the day, I can see how he could,
all of his assistants got jobs right away.
And that's true. That's fine. And even the guy, it didn't make much sense at the second.
The Minnesota one was very fishy one.
Yeah, that was really fishy. But again, I give him credit. At the end of the day, he's done well for himself. I'll never be the Nick Nurse fan club. He won the championship, but he made a lot of bonehead maneuvers. Even in that situation, what was it that almost cost him Game 6? Was putting down. Danny Green was horrendous.
Oh, the dribbling when he turned it over.
And then he put Green in there for no apparent reason, and Green nearly gets a turnover and nearly costs him the game, and Steph misses the shot. Like, I would have got absolutely, imagine losing that series over some idiocy like that, and there's no reason that Green was terrible in that game. He couldn't hit it in the back of the
playoffs. He was most of the team was playoffs.
Well, like I said, it just some of the decisions absolutely made no sense.
What were his options? We're getting off topic, but anyways, point is that Nick Nurse and Pascal, yeah, who would have thought that we'd be talking about them a year after, both winning the championship, a year and a half after that. Nick Nurse has, quote, possibly lost the locker room. But the guy's a championship coach. Granted, obviously without Kawhi, they wouldn't have won it for sure. But they also, I don't think they would have won the title if Casey was there. Who knows? A lot of things went right for them when they
were right? I think I disagree in that fact because I think Casey, given a guy like Kawhi Leonard, and he saw what
Dwayne Casey was one of the worst guys drawing a play at all times. Do you remember after every time it was an ISO, give DeMar the ball every time?
But here's the thing. But based off again, because you had DeMar as a guy, you got to play ISO with DeMar at the end of the day.
But there was no play call. It was just give DeMar the ball and everybody get out of the way, right?
Okay, but again, we saw that. Well, here's the thing. We saw that last year a lot with Nurse too. He would give last shots to ISOs on with Norm Powell. We saw a guy. Why is Norm taking this shot? We questioned that a lot last year. It was very similar stuff. I remember, there was literally like 10 seconds of let's give Norm a one-on-one. It's not like Nurse wasn't doing the same kind of thing. I'm telling you, you give him Kawhi Leonard for the year, and I think
give me Kawhi Leonard for the year. Give you right.
Like I said, to me, and again, there's certain things that people do that end up in my doghouse that I'll never forget. And to me, that time was absolutely unforgivable. Because I literally was there. It would have been a sell. I was literally working in the stands. And at the end of the day, that would have been at home. That would have been such a greater celebration, in my opinion. It being in the arena, that would have been one of my greatest sports moments of all time.
What game was that? It wasn't.
That was Game 5 when they were here. They
could have won in 5. They could
have won in 5. They were up, I think, 5 points with a minute and a half. For some odd reason, they Kawhi's hitting every shot feasible. The Golden State Warriors have no timeouts. He decides to Nurse calls a timeout when they have all the momentum in the world to give the Warriors a breather because they were reeling, absolutely reeling. And even the Golden State Warriors praised Nurse after the game. That's how bad and stupid decision that was. That the Warriors were like, thank God Nurse did that because we were on fumes. They had us going. It was one of the dumbest coaching decisions I've ever seen.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the whole Norm Powell situation and why he was essentially traded. Mm-hmm. So obviously his stock went up towards the end of the year. Contract year started off really slow. Now, I did this comparison yesterday. I did end up posting the podcast, so we'll talk about it now. Baseball fans will remember Albert Pujols and the contract that he got when he left San Francisco, St. Louis and went to Anaheim. Ended up getting between $250 and $275 million.
Something like that, yeah.
So St. Louis did not want to pay him that much money, even though he was still at that point, one of the greatest hitters of all time. But starting the fall,
he's getting older.
Fall, right?
Yeah.
Now, point I'm making here is so they didn't spend the $260 million, which is a hell of a lot of money in any sport. What they did is they allocated that money to fill out a roster. And they've been a pretty sustainable team ever since because now you look at the team who signed Pujols, the Angels, and they have nothing but terrible contracts there except Mike Trout, right? Yeah. Point is here, I'm going to go through the Raptors' salary for next year, and you can't pay Norm Powell. Why? Possibly bad signings that the Raptors have. Okay. Pascal Siakam next year, how much money is he making?
Probably like 35, 40 million.
33 next year, 35 the year after, 37 the year after.
Yeah, they gave him a max deal.
An overpay, you think?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's hard to judge these, like for example, Pascal at this point last year, during the All-Star.
He made his first All-Star team.
He was a starter. He was a starter on the All-Star team. I think people forget that. People tend to, and this is the funny thing is that I don't want to go on a tangent about Kyle and all.
Kyle Lowry is a starter. But DeMar DeRozan is a starter.
The fact of the matter is that Kyle for half a decade had horrendous playoffs, absolutely horrendous, and people tend to forget all that. Oh, who cares about those sweeps to the Wizards and all that other stuff? Yeah, he had some horrendous play. His stats were terrible sometimes in the playoffs. They would get swept by team. They got swept by a John Wall Wizards team back in the day.
Yeah, when Beal was the second year.
They got absolutely annihilated. Nobody remembers that. It's all Kyle last couple years, greatness, all this baloney. And again, that's the problem that I have is people that are short-sighted with some players, but forget certain situations before. So when Kyle.
So is this a risk that you want to take with Pascal then?
But here's the situation. In normal times, now do I think that Pascal's been getting better? He's starting to average about 23 again. He's starting to get cooking again. And again, that's probably because he wants to beat up Nick Nurse. At the end of the Stone Cold Stunner. Anyways, fact of the matter is Pascal what we saw in the bubble? No. Is Pascal the all-star level starter that we saw probably it? No. It's somewhere probably in between. Where Pascal will probably end up being a similar situation to Kyle Lowry, where he'll likely maybe a few more All-Star games depending on who comes up. And he'll be a guy that can be counted on to be that kind of player.
Do you think that he'll have a better career than let's say, so he has, and I'll go through it. Question is, I guess, just to get to that while I pull up some of the numbers, do you think that he'll be a better Raptor? I know that Kyle has some longevity on him, but even then DeMar, because DeMar, I'd say, was a Raptor for maybe like 7 or 8 years.
Well, not if he keeps wanting to beat up Nick Nurse, he will be at the end of the day. But the fact of the matter is, again, if you're going by the situation, Pascal had that
trajectory.
The run that he had in the championship is, again, nobody but Kawhi was good in the Philly series. Without Kawhi, they don't get past Philly. The other series he was very good. He's the second option scoring for the most part between him and Fred. He was good. So again, was that the Pascal? Is that the Pascal Lash? Obviously, there's going to be growing pains when, like you said, teams are game planning for him, trying to stop him. He's got to develop his game more. He's obviously been able to
a hard worker,
and now again he's starting to get a little bit more fire. So I think that'll end up being a decent salary because, like I said, you're paying Lowry like $30 million right now, and Pascal's still in his prime. So to me, he's still going to be. And again, it's a weird season, bubbles. No home games, no fans.
It might be the same next year for all we know, right? There's no guarantee the Raptors are playing at home next year.
I mean, there's no guarantee, but I would assume based off how things are going, there probably will be fans. Miami's already opening up things for vaccinated individuals.
Not fans, but even like the border stuff, right? Like I think a lot of people thought the Raptors would play. Like if you looked at last year in the bubble, I think a lot of people would say that they thought Raptors. Nobody thought they were having to move the team. Everybody would have said no fans, but they're going to be playing in Toronto. So next year, I don't think much is going to change. But getting back to the salary cap here. So this year, the Raptors, $130 million. Next year on the books, 102. Guys that are coming off. Alex Len, Stanley Johnson, McCaw. Guys on contract. Kyle Lowry.
Are they still paying Alex Len?
Well, this is just for this season.
Who's on the books? So even though they
traded,
him?
I guess.
Okay.
I think you still have to pay him if you release him.
Damn.
So Siakam, $33 million. Kyle, 0 for next year.
Okay.
Fred, 19.6. Okay.
Just a good
Norm Powell opted out. He's going to get 11.6.
Okay.
Aaron Baines, you got him next year for 7.3. He was here for 7 this year. Chris Boucher, $7 million next year.
That's a bargain considering what he's been playing at.
Patrick McCaw, free agent. OG Anunoby, 16, 17, 18, and then in 2024-25, a player option for $19 million, which you got to think he's going to opt out.
I'm at the end of the day, like with OG, it's been unfortunate with his, again, injuries and other things that have gone down. I still think that again, I think it's probably another lost year for OG, unfortunately, because of what happened with injuries and then the COVID and all that other stuff. I've seen some flashes.
I was saying yesterday, I think you could make a case. Maybe not the first, but maybe the second most valuable player on the team, based on what he does defensively for this team.
Best
defender has to be
best defender. And like I said, I think it's another unfortunate with the injury and then hitting the COVID again. He's been a start and stop. I thought that whole rest thing the other day was pretty weak, but
it might have just also been more that he wasn't really fit to play, right?
I mean, I guess so, but like it was. I mean, at 24, I don't know, maintenance days at 24.
I mean, more of like the COVID stuff. Maybe they just wanted to give him another day off. Maybe
that's
good,
fair enough.
Not necessarily
with a losing streak, it was one of those make or break days. I think they could have used him for that game, but
the Houston one.
Well, yeah, those are two bad losses.
Cleveland and Houston.
When you're getting like smack talk by Colin Sexton, I watched the entire game. It wasn't pretty. Larry Jazz
as well.
The biggest problem with the Raptors this year is I personally, and I'll say that I definitely didn't give Serge enough credit. I think Serge ended up being more of a difference maker than I thought for the most part. And Mark was on his last legs. Who knows if he...
Before the bubble, though, he was still decent.
He was still decent, but not having that kind of presence inside, and Baines just hasn't really worked out.
Doesn't have the size either.
Surge is definitely a miss in there, and you can see. And again, had they kept Serge and would have been Boucher off the bench...
If they kept Serge this year, I think they'd be a top 4 team.
They'd be a much better team. Again, Serge has been injured a little bit as well with the Clippers, but... You definitely see that Serge was more valuable than maybe we gave him credit for, and again he had a great championship run. He's another guy that had a great run in series. So yeah, it ended up biting the Raptors more. And again, I don't know if it was because they were trying to pay Gasol or what was going on in that situation, but it is what it is. And yeah, he's been definitely a miss for them inside.
So what I was alluding to is they're going to have $28 million coming off the books this year. what would you address? What position would you try and address if you're the Raptors?
Definitely the
interior. Don't make the same mistakes you did this year.
Well, the thing is, again, I would say you probably try to, I don't know what you could do with Baines if you can like ship Baines off with a second rounder and somebody might take him, but
you can keep Baines as a backup, which is I think what he is, and I think there's been a lot of Baines slander. Some of it okay.
What do you do with Boucher?
5 and 4.
I guess. I mean, like I said, I think. Yeah, I mean, Chris is limited depending on the matchups in terms of because of his lack of bulk. But again, he's been
when he plays when he's hot, he's a 20 and 10 guy.
Yeah,
when he's hot,
hot.
With the right matchup.
But I would definitely address the front court needs
in a draft because they took Malachi Flynn, and this is usually they hit on those picks, and he's still young.
Malachi Flynn's been an issue. His dad has been in the media a lot talking smack too. That might be another problem. I think Nick Nurse is just full of problems these days. You might need Kyle as a bodyguard is what I'm looking at these days. But yeah, I mean like he's again another guy that again to me was great in the preseason. They didn't give him many minutes, but we'll see what they do. It'll be interesting what they do if they are legitimately going to try to make the playoffs, or they're going to go more into the tank mode. I don't know. But by the moves today,
right?
By the moves today, I don't know. They definitely didn't get better today.
But they're not playing any of those guys anyways, except obviously Powell, right?
I guess
but
maybe, you probably might throw does Rodney Hood get minutes? I'm assuming so.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he gets minutes, and I guess
Gary Trent's going to help them. I know that the thing with Powell too was he was really good for them offensively, but apparently Gary Trent's a good defender. And they're going to need some help on the wing, right? Especially with OG.
And he can shoot.
He can shoot.
Yeah. I mean, I saw some of the again, I haven't seen a ton of Trent Jr. in Portland. It looks like a lot of Blazers fans were not happy that he was part of that deal. So
when McCollum gets hurt every year, when he went down, he was like their only, because Carmelo obviously is hit and miss. Mm-hmm. Trent went on fire. I picked him up in fantasy, as you probably know, and he carried the torch for me.
Well, there you go.
He was great, and then all of a sudden CJ came back as a respect thing. Obviously, he's getting paid a lot of money. Trent got reduced. He's averaging like 8 points since.
So maybe if it ends up that game, so maybe it's another great job by Masai getting another and taking him to school.
And Trent's looking for a contract as well, right?
I'm a little bit, and because you just mentioned, where does Norm fit on the Blazers?
6 men.
So back to the bench. Interesting. I wonder how that'll fit him.
Like you could start him because Carmelo. I see Carmelo's been coming off the bench recently, so you could go Dame, CJ, and Norm in a very small front line. But then you have Nurk, who's going to be coming back.
Fantasy team. You bet that he keeps getting broken fingers.
He gets hurt every year. There's always a new injury with him, right? He broke the leg, which
you
was
put me over the top. Shout out to the fantasy league, still in first.
Shout out to the Bosnian Beast.
Oh boy!
But yeah, I think that.
He goes back tomorrow. I think I'll be watching that very closely.
You'll be watching it very closely.
Still on the IL. I'm giving it a couple games.
I might have to pick him up.
Oh boy!
But yeah, that's what I was going to get at with Norm. The reason why I was going to say, and this comes to, like I said, with the pools thing is you can't pay everybody when they're due. And guys these days, and I guess somewhat rightfully so, they're going to get a little bit hurt when you don't offer them the money. Like Pascal got a max. Mm-hmm. If you would have offered him $5 or $10 million less, he would have probably went to the highest bidder. Mm-hmm. And all these guys now, it's like Norm, and Norm said it yesterday, I love this place, but I understand it's a business. And that's wise of him to say, because if there was no cap, of course they would want to.
So how much do you think Norm gets in free agency? Is he gonna get like?
I would think he's gonna get 12 to 15 a year.
Isn't that what he's already on though?
He's 10. I think he's 10 and 11 right now. Okay, so let's say he gets 15 a year.
Well, I mean,
Fred got 20 a season, 20, 21, 22 going up, right?
I would take Fred over Norm though. I mean, yeah.
But still, you think? I think that it's pretty safe to say that Norm's going to get $15 million.
Yeah, I would say that.
On probably a 4-year deal.
Probably going to get paid $15 million at least.
4 years, 60.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up getting up to 17 or 18. To be honest with you, depending on what the market is. And
you know he's going to go off to finish the season. Portland's going to make the playoffs. He's going to playoff run.
At the end of the day, like I'll be supporting. Hoping the Norm does well in the playoffs.
I want to talk about that too. So we were texting about this earlier today, and I said, you know what, this one hurts a little bit, Norm. And I'm not like. Norm's not my.
He's a homegrown guy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He succeeded quite well.
The thing with the Raptors, I think that a lot of people have really, I guess, fell in love with this team is there's a lot of homegrown guys. Sure. We saw Fred, Pascal, OG, Boucher, guys that played in the G League. And you saw you drafted these guys, you planted some seeds, they've come up, they've all been way better than people thought. Absolutely. And it hurts to see them go. And as a guy who works games and as a season seat holder, like you invest memories in these guys, and like
Absolutely.
I watched Norm's highlights today of those dunks, especially in the finals,
When
and
he was, yeah.
just so many like the nostalgia and almost like chills watching that stuff. Like, I'm gonna miss that.
Sometimes you don't appreciate guys until they're really gone at the end of the day, and then that's the true thing. Like, I mean, I told you, I threw it out to you. I had no shame admitting it when I was young, and I still remember to this day is that I got home, I got on my old desktop. I must have been like 15, 16 years old, and the first thing I used to go to tsn.ca it's pretty much when the internet had just come out, and I look at it and I'm like, Vince Carter traded to Nets, and I still remember it like it was yesterday where I saw that, and I'm like, I actually, because I loved Carter as a kid, and that's just the reality of it. I literally broke down and cried.
You didn't even see the return yet.
I hadn't even seen the return because I had just, I'm like, oh no, like, and I had never seen Carter live. I paid to go a couple games. Every time that I paid to go see a game, like later on, he was injured. I never got to see him live, and then I ended up paying a boatload of money when he came back on the Nets, and he got booed out of the building. But he ended up winning the game.
The overtime.
The overtime, and then Jason Kidd
the reverse dunk, the Chappelle dunk. But he was early on like that.
I don't know if it was I think it was the game where he ended up winning the game in overtime. And Jason, I think he hit a three, and Jason Kidd jumped on top of him or something.
Yes.
He ended up winning the game. And man, people, I had never seen, and I think I paid like $200 for that. Like,
pandemonium at the ACC.
I had never seen somebody get hated so vile. People were wearing diapers. People were throwing bibs at him. It was one of the like. I'll never forget the hostility in that crowd because I had never seen anything like it at any sporting event, at least that I had been to. They were literally out for blood. And again, to me, it just goes to show you how much people really liked Carter, and it was a heel turn. It was the ultimate heel turn. It was a Hulk Hogan heel turn in WCW.
Cheer to the back of the head of the Warrior.
People, you can't say that Carter was in love. When people I saw guys in like wearing diapers and dressed like babies. It was insane. And that's why I always tell people the effect that Carter had in this city, love him or hate him. And a lot of people will trash him mostly because they've never forgiven him for what happened there. The older generation they never because he
did. It was a coward move. Like he quit on the team.
Management was also to blame for it. So I give him about 50-50 because management decided that
But he really sunk his stock too. He really did it to himself.
But again, it's very similar to what Deshaun Watson's doing in football right now. Deshaun Watson wanted some input on who Houston was going to hire. They decided to tell him to screw off, and now he's not only wanting a trade, he's facing some allegations which is very suspicious at the time. But again,
we'll talk about that before the draft.
But again, it's very similar where Carter just got disgruntled. And again, all in all, I still to this day say that Vince was right because Julius Erving would not have done as bad a job as Babcock would have because Babcock did a horrendous job. So Vince, in hindsight, Vince was absolutely right. Between Rafael Rougeau and
Joey Graham.
and again, I like Charlie. Charlie went out of the league pretty quick. I don't think he won. I think he was almost second or something like that. That was a pretty good pick. With one of the picks that he got from Carter, but what he got from Carter was it makes the James Harden package look like it was monumental. Aaron Williams, Eric Williams, and Alonzo Mourning didn't want to go in there, and then ended up getting like a first round pick. It was a horrendous package for a premier player. And again, but I got off on a tangent on that just to bring back memories. But yes, it's going to be tough to see Norm in a different jersey. It'll be weird when he comes back, but he'll get a standing ovation.
100%. If there's ever fans back when he comes back,
they'll give him the
tribute video.
He deserves it. He was a class act. He loved Canada. I wouldn't even be surprised if he ends up coming back at some point later in his career and finishing off as a Raptor. Well, once done, they gave him an opportunity. Again, same thing with Fred. I think as much as I thought Fred was going to leave, and maybe the market dried up. A lot of these guys do give credit to some teams for taking a chance on
They're
them.
loyal. Yeah.
They're loyal. Like Fred, you never know. And it's still a thing. And I go back to who knows what Kyle would have been had Masai actually
pulled the trigger on the Knicks.
He might not have gone to where he ended up doing. Because remember, at that time he was still considered a little bit of a journeyman.
Yeah.
He had been on. It was his third team. He wasn't anywhere near an all-star level player. Coach killer. Like he was literally if he had gone ruining it, he might have been a Raymond Felton. He might have been Raymond Felton at the end of the day if I had gone bad for him.
Could have been
Raymond Felton.
He was a much higher pick. So I'll run through the East really quick. Update. So Philly 31-13, sitting in first. A game and a half up on Milwaukee, 29-14. Brooklyn still a game and a half back at 30 and 15. So those three teams are really jockeying for a position. Fourth place, Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, my man Terry Rozier.
22 and 21. Miami Heat, 22 wins, 22 losses.
But they're in the, like, going back
they're going to drop because it's so tight.
Well, LaMelo's down too, right? Yeah. So that'll be a big problem.
And they didn't make any moves today, which is a little bit surprising too. Miami Heat, 22 and 22 at 5th. The Knicks, 22 and 22 in 6th. Atlanta, 22 and 22 in 7th. So they're all tied up. So you look at, after that, it's Boston, who's in 8th place at 21 and 23. Then you have the Pacers, who are a lock for the playoffs every year, 20 and 23 and 9. The Bulls at 19 and 24, which is the last playing game.
See, the Pacers were interesting because I thought the Pacers were going to do what Orlando did today, which they were rumored to try. They were thinking of getting rid of Turner and Sabonis, and it was all over the place. Even Brogdon was really on the block.
I heard that they were listening. Everything was really weird. But then I heard today that TJ Warren's now out for the year officially. So then they had a lot of guys to play with that were 15 to 20 point guys. And then just to end it right here, the Raptors 11th place at 18 and 26. So out of a play-in game, only 1.5 games out, but you look at Chicago are a lot better now, so you have to jump.
Where's Chicago's at?
Chicago only has 1 more win, but the Raptors have 2 more losses, so a game and a half behind them. So the Raptors have to jump Chicago. Ahead of them is Indy, Boston, Atlanta. Only 4 games back there, but like I said, a lot of ground to make up and a lot of teams to jump.
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, I don't, because I personally believe that at the end of the day, depending, I guess the playoffs are what, like a month and a month. Well, maybe. I still don't know what the NBA. The NBA goes to a bubble again.
No, I don't think the players want. I think it would be wise to, but I don't think
vaccinated, and I guess maybe they won't do that. But like
I said, it's risky. Do you think that the Raptors make the playoffs?
I think the Raptors likely probably get into a play-in game.
You think they get a play-in game?
That's the best case scenario. I would have thought that. That they might get into a play-in game.
So Chicago and India,
I think there's certain teams that will, again, the Raptors aren't as bad as they've been, and they're due for a run when everybody gets healthy.
Which is now.
And again, at the end of the day, also I have to look at their schedule, who they play.
It's a tough schedule.
I think Charlotte will drop probably pretty significantly without LaMelo. I don't think that. Terry Rozier's been playing very well. PJ Washington. Other guys like that, I think they'll drop without LaMelo. And again, I expect Boston to be better, but I expect that the Raptors.
Not going to jump Boston.
And I still don't fully trust the Knicks and a lot of those teams.
The Knicks are a lock for the playoffs.
You think so?
Oh yeah, they're just too tough defensively.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're not. They're going to win enough games to stay. They're in like 6th place right now. I think.
Well,
I know it's tight.
6 and 9 is like a game, right?
Yeah, but if I had to place a bet on the Knicks making the playoffs or the Raptors, whoever had the higher seed, I would take the Knicks. I think they've just been more stable all year. Not the better roster, but they're more stable.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. But like I said, again, they're still down the stretch. We'll see. I think the Raptors might make a play-in game as the last play-in team, probably.
Okay, I would say it's 50-50 at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty. Well, again, those are the. Yeah.
My heart's telling me that. My mind's telling me that. Okay, last thing, I just got a notification. So Masai Ujiri released a statement or something about the whole Kyle thing.
Oh boy.
Honestly, we didn't know which way it was going to go. We came in today looking at both possible ways. To be honest, I viewed him as someone that could go and put a stamp on what you're trying to do this year, which would be win a championship. I know if we went to those places, I know what he could have done. I've lived it. I've seen it. If I value him too much, hey, that's what I believe in. So pretty much saying that the offers were not what he wanted. He didn't want to send them over for a bag of, Snickers or whatever it was. So he kept him with the Raptors because he didn't want to get fleeced on the deal.
Well,
your thoughts?
Well, I mean, and I'm a big Masai guy, and I get the PR, this thing.
It's a good PR stuff.
It's a PR situation, and I completely get it. Remember, like, this is a guy that him and Kyle have obviously had problems over the years with the whole DeMar thing, and that was a big and like Kyle calling him out with Rachel Nichols on those interviews, and Kyle acting like a baby,
child, yep.
A child with his best friend goes to play with somebody else. That was what the situation was, in my opinion. My imaginary friend, a 33-year-old doing that, like, ridiculous. But anyways, that's what I get. I can't stand about. So truthfully, it's nothing about Kyle. I can't stand.
It's the person. It's the gimmick.
And it's also that he bothers me at sometimes, and he plays some great defensive ball. But to
as
me,
a player, we love him.
Kyle tends to take. To me, he's been just an irritating player to me because even watching some of the games of late. we'll be on a run, and he'll just take some of the stupidest shots I've ever. Where
I'll pull up three and fast break.
I'll pull up three in a fast break where there's no one under the rim. Where he tends to be a run killer at times, and it irritates the crap out of me sometimes. But anyways,
so Masai was a good PR move.
Let's be real here. When Masai had already dealt him when he first got here, he dealt him for a bag of chips. It was
a first round pick.
It was Iman Shumpert, who we know,
No, but at that point,
Tiana Taylor, and Tiana Taylor fame.
A few steamy videos.
At that point, Iman Shumpert wasn't much in the league at that point.
Yeah, but he had a higher stock then than he did later, for sure.
Well, again, as a younger guy there. Yeah. And again, yes, the Knicks first round picks, which again, we saw that could be Jakob Poeltl, that could be all sorts of stuff. We saw what they were doing with those things. Anyways, he nearly dealt them for a bag of chips. So do I think that Masai all of a sudden got some revelation with Kyle Lowry? No. I think Masai got a mulligan on a trade thanks to James Dolan being an idiot. Like I said, I don't know what Kyle would have been in that system. He could have been the Kyle that we saw. He could have been Raymond Felton.
Nobody succeeds.
I think Raymond like Ty Lawson probably had some issues with his weight and his activities outside
off the court.
Well, we know. I mean, Ron's seen what Ty Lawson does outside the court. Shout out to Ron Davis, the podcast. So all in all. So we don't know the situation. So do I think that Masai is tongue in cheek with some of those comments? I think so. I think he gives Kyle credit that he respects what he's done, which I do as well. But I think had Tyler Hero been on the board or maybe even gotten Precious, the young Heat center, and along with a couple of first round picks, Kyle would be back in his bags. And it is. He got probably undercut. Pat Riley's a shrewd guy. If they offered what they did for Oladipo, I would not have taken that trade, and I'm not even on the Kyle Lowry fan club. I would not have done that because to me it doesn't do anything. Olynyk's pretty much at the end of the line. Avery Bradley's a guy that doesn't do much for the Raptors, and I think it was a second round picks for. You're not going to trade him for that. So if that was, and that's what the situation was, I don't do it. And again, depending on what Philly had offered as well. So I don't know how much of a market there really was for Kyle. And
the thing that Kyle that was so hard is making $30 million, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. But if Kyle gets dealt for a bag of chips, it's a
bad look.
It also looks at that maybe Kyle isn't as valuable as people actually think Kyle is at the end of the day. And
I think it's just the salary. Like if he's making $15 million, I think every team is knocking on the door.
Sure,
or
but
$20 million.
But
you got to match these salaries.
You're sending fillers anyway, so the salary isn't the biggest of deals. Now, again, that kind of Miami, for example, can't send Dragic to Toronto because Dragic has basically a no
because he just signed a contract this year.
Well, I think he has a no trade, so he can nix any deal. So at the end of the day, that was put in there. So he probably would not have taken that deal to Toronto. So that inhibits a lot of contenders. And the Lakers, to me, they weren't going to send Schroeder to Kyle because to me that's at best a similar move, or it doesn't make him any better.
You don't think it makes them any better just for this season?
If you got to send, for example, if you got to send in, I think they were thinking about Schroeder, and then you have they probably would have wanted Taylor Horton, and again, that's a guy that looks like he has some decent potential. I don't know how much that. Again, to me, maybe the Lakers, as Shannon Sharp would say, he would have packed Kyle Kuzma's bags if it was Kuzma and something else, and probably gone Lowry because Kuzma's a little bit of an enigma in LA is the best word.
But let's say that you could